you all for coming. I'm Maggie Zarowski, a professor in the English department in creative writing. I'm very happy to welcome you to tonight's reading by visiting poet Ana Božičević. I said your name right now? Close enough? Okay. Before Anna's reading, Christina Wood, who is let's just say a prose writer in our PhD program. And so she's going to be the opening act in the rock and roll tradition of welcoming the out-of-town person. But before I start, I wanted to thank Jamie Mays, who without this, I don't know, I couldn't have done any of this myself. Jamie, thank you for doing all the paperwork, getting the books here, making sure the chairs are out, and I will roll chairs down a hallway with you any day as long as I never have to fill out a form, so thank you. Now I will introduce Christina Wood. It is my great pleasure to introduce Christina Wood tonight. I am lucky enough to be on her dissertation committee, where I get to watch her first novel come into being. Though I am technically the teacher in this scenario the university has designed for us, when I'm discussing writing with Christina, I'm always very aware that we are both just writers having a conversation. I'm in the lucky position of being able to speak with her peer-to-peer, which is code for I am always learning something about writing from her. This newest project of the novel isn't Christina's first rodeo. As I like to tell people when introducing Christina, she's published a very good story in the Paris Review. She's published stuff in other magazines too, has received prestigious residencies and worked as an assistant editor at Dorothy, one of the most exciting small fiction presses in the country. Oh, and she had a very good story published in the Paris Review. In a moment, you'll see why. Please help me in welcoming Christina Wood.
Thank you, it's so kind. Is this your phone?
No, it's
for the camera.
Recording.
Cool, okay.
Posterity.
Love posterity. Hi everyone, thanks for coming. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Anna, for coming to visit us from afar too. It's great to have you. So I'm gonna read a personal essay. Can y'all hear me okay? All right, great. I'm gonna read a personal essay. It's called Islands and Unresiliency on Zoom Divorce and Tove Jansson's The Summer Book. So it goes without saying it's about getting divorced on Zoom, and it's about this really great book too, The Summer Book by Tove Jansson. Sorry, it's okay, thank you. And I'll talk more about the book. If you've read it, chat with me afterward and let me know. It's just one of my favorite books and I really recommend it. All right. 3 months into the pandemic, my partner of 13 years and I split up. And a year after that, our divorce hearing took place on Zoom. We were living in different states. We hadn't spoken in a year except to send emails about who owed the other what. Every couple months, I'd received an email letting me know I was wrong about something and therefore owed them money. I had planned it well in advance of the hearing. I would cover their video box with a Post-it. I didn't want to see them. In actual courtrooms, I reasoned, former spouses don't stare into each other's eyes while they agree to legally end a marriage. They look at the judge, the stenographer. They will their peripheral vision to narrow to a pinhole. Eye contact is for wedding vows, for conversations on a couch you've purchased together, for fighting. When you divorce, you look away. And why did I deserve a discomfort greater than that of the average divorcing couple just because my hearing was on Zoom? That year had already been uncomfortable enough. That year I'd been tumbled by the loss of my grandmother, my dad in radiation treatment on the other side of the country, the start of a PhD program, COVID-19 and quarantine, the pivot to online teaching and learning, and a new relationship that was bumpy in unfamiliar ways. A month into the pandemic, 2 months before our split, I began waking up daily with hives. Red welts on my thighs and arms that I took photos of and sent via patient portal to my doctor. I paid $500 to get tested for allergies. I learned I shouldn't eat too many cashews. But the allergist shrugged and said, hives are the body's way of expressing many things. Any stressors lately, he asked. Behind my mask, I laughed. The Post-it was green. I stuck it to the edge of my laptop before I logged on to the video call. I'm not sure if it was that the court officials kept coming in and out of the Zoom meeting, or if it was that the hierarchy of video boxes shifted each time someone spoke. When it's flooded with adrenaline, the brain doesn't do a good job of making memories. Regardless, my Post-it backfired. My ex jumped around on the screen, darting out from beneath my shield. I saw them in a button-down shirt, maybe dressed nicely for the workday they'd return to afterward, maybe dressed for the hearing itself. I saw the wall of the apartment we had once shared behind them, its familiar plaster brushstroke texture. Those white walls that glowed green on spring and summer afternoons, cast in the light that bounced off the leaves of the oak trees outside. I could tell they were sitting in a place where there wasn't usually a desk or a table. I wondered whether they had rearranged the furniture in my absence, or if they'd put a table somewhere new just for the hearing. It makes sense that you wouldn't want to get divorced in the same place where you usually work, or eat dinner, or watch TV. In non-pandemic times, the courtroom holds that experience for you. It keeps it separate from your everyday life. I saw flashes of them on my laptop screen. I heard their voice, uncomfortable, vulnerable, polite. I moved my Post-it around and hoped they couldn't see my hand reaching up toward the camera again and again. The hearing felt shameful, like strangers letting themselves into my home and digging around in my bathroom trash, inspecting my used Q-tips and the wads of dead hair pulled from my shower drain, like someone reading the first drafts of everything I've ever written. At the same time, it was all very benign. All we had to say was yes or correct when the judge asked a question. The other court staffers paged through documents, recorded notes. There were no lawyers. Everything was already sorted out in the paperwork. No children, no property, scant assets. The divorce proceedings had nothing to do with all the days and nights we'd spent together, with the way since college we'd woven our identities together. Nothing to do with the well-trod paths of our perennial arguments, with what we begged for from one another, with the moment, years in the making, we decided to break it off. It wasn't about us. It didn't take long, 10 minutes, 15. It was quick, but it was hard to be there. The whole time, I was moving my Post-it around the screen. I was doing what I'd been doing for so much of the previous year, trying to contain something that, like the hives, kept on popping up. I don't usually reread books unless I'm teaching them, but since my divorce and since the start of the pandemic, I've returned again and again to the Finnish writer Tove Jansson's The Summer Book. A novel in vignettes, the plot of The Summer Book is, at first glance, not complex. You could call it a vacation story. A little girl, Sophia, spends the summer with her grandmother on a tiny mossy island that bobs in the ocean off the coast of Finland. The two spend their days watching birds and playing make-believe. They carve driftwood and gather mushrooms. Some days the ocean is calm, some days there are storms. Occasionally they have visitors, humans, and a cat, though they prefer to be alone. By synopsis alone, you might mistake the novel for a children's book. Jansson, who was born in 1914 and who died in 2001, is best known as the creator of the Moomins. She wrote and illustrated many picture books and novels for children. The Summer Book is about a child, and its prose leans toward simplicity and transparency. It is sometimes playful and funny, but in the same manner as fairy tales and Studio Ghibli films, it wears the guise of a children's story only to pry open that tightly shut door we use to hide our most vulnerable self. In the second chapter of the book, we learn the true reason for Sophia's island visit. Quote, "One time in April, there was a full moon, and the sea was covered with ice. Sophia woke up and remembered they had come back to the island and she had a bed to herself because her mother was dead. Sophia's mother has died young, and Sophia, her grandmother, and her father, who's just a shadow in the novel, they've journeyed to the island to grieve. In The Poetics of Space, the philosopher Gaston Bachelard describes a home as our corner of the world, our first universe, a real cosmos in every sense of the word. A home is a place that shelters daydreaming and allows one to dream in peace. For Bachelard, a home is meant to offer a person safety, stability, nurturance, and belonging. So if a home is a state of belonging and ease, what then is an island? On Janssen's island, Sophia and her grandmother are nearly always outdoors, ambling around or paddling their rowboat. One May morning, grandmother and Sophia rise before dawn to walk along the still icy shoreline and listen to the long-tailed ducks who have come to the island to breed. When they come across a dead duck laid out on a rock, Sophia is distraught. It has died right at the start of spring, when it is brand new and just married. Angry and crying, Sophia insists her grandmother explain why the duck has died. Because, as we know, she is a girl who understands there are right and wrong times to die. In another vignette, Sophia is so troubled by a cat that refuses to return her affections that she declares, "I wish Moppy had never been born, or else that I'd never been born." It's no easier with human visitors. When a little girl named Berenice comes to visit, her beautiful curly hair inspires Sophia to serve as her new friend's protector. But well-bred and quiet Berenice doesn't take to island life. She dislikes ants and boats and cold water, and Sophia learns that just because she admires someone's hair doesn't mean she'll get along with them. Berenice mopes. She won't play with Sophia, and Sophia is incensed to the point of mutiny. She draws a picture of a child with ants crawling all over her body and screaming. She draws a picture of the same child being hit on the head with a stone, a curly-haired child, I should say. So much of the summer book is a conversation between grandmother, the one who is nearest to death, and granddaughter, the one who is farthest from it and who understands it the least. When Sophia wants to play a make-believe game where she will be called dear child and her grandmother will be called mama, grandmother knows that is not a good game to play. When Berenice doesn't acclimate to the island, it is grandmother who understands that an island can be dreadful for someone from the outside. That Berenice upsets Sophia so much because she is a threat to the solitude and grief that Sophia is accustomed to. Summer vacation or not, the island is not about escape. Every vignette, every tantrum, every excursion is a fable with a lesson about the nature of life and death, grief and patience. Each day, Sophia and her grandmother orbit around the gap that Sophia's mother used to fill. The book was published in 1972, just 2 years after the death of Janssen's own mother. The island, then, is not a home, is not a place of relief, but it gives grandmother and Sophia privacy and time to think, distance from those who might witness and question their missteps, their distress. Sophia and her grandmother are on the island because there they have a place away from everything where perfect resiliency is not required. I've never been good at telling stories about myself. You'll have noticed I dropped the story about my divorce and have distracted you with a long passage about a novel. It is the habit of an English major to disappear into a book. It is the habit of someone who has more than once been accused of being secretive to ask metaphor to step in. I keep returning to the summer book because I understand Sophia, her tempers and fears. I know what it's like to be bowled over by a dream about an old apartment, by the word belly, the letter F, a certain champagne gold tint to the sky, the smell of pine and charcoal on a damp day, like the beach after rain. Putting the Post-it on my screen was a gesture infused with many wants. I didn't want to see the home we shared. I didn't want to have to see or worry about what my ex was going through. I didn't want our divorce to be about them when so much of our marriage had already felt like living through their biopic. I tried to hide their image for many reasons, but really I think I was wishing for the opposite. I wished it had occurred to them to bring their own post-it. I didn't want them to see me, and I didn't want to see them witnessing me. My new life, my new home, the discomfort on my face. I wanted to step away from the burden of performing anything. Placidity, sorrow, certainty, resilience. I wanted my own version of Janssen's Island. I changed the title of this essay to Resiliency, and then I changed it to Unresiliency, and then I changed it back. I couldn't figure out what the difference between them was. I think it might be that the difference is simply in the eye of the beholder. Someone who is not on the island with you will want to know what's wrong. Someone who is not on the island with you, but who is instead a friend in the new state where you now live, will say, I didn't even know you were married. And then you'll have to try to find a way to explain the full plot of the movie to someone who came into the room during the last 3 minutes. You'll have to find a way to explain how you kept something secret without even realizing it. I needed an island because I needed a break from outsiders, from having to explain something I didn't understand to other people. All the maneuvers we dance through every day to seem reasonable to others, to make any sense at all. I needed a break from my mom on the phone, asking, have you talked to them yet? Imagining a reconciliation. From the customer service person on the other side of the chat box, asking, what is the reason for your last name change request? It's embarrassing, but it took me 2 months to tell my parents about the split. It's embarrassing, but when I organized a divorce party for myself and ordered a cake with the words Happy Divorce on it, I thought a lot about the baker who doodled the words in icing, what kind of happy divorce story they imagined for me. The summer book shows me you can't have resiliency without the undoing of it. You can't get through the awful thing without the space to be wrathful, weeping, ungraceful. The island is a place you go when you need to keep yourself for yourself, when you need time to understand your own life before it becomes a story you tell to other people. Life is different now, almost 3 years after the Zoom hearing. The hives are long gone, thankfully. I joke and tell people I highly recommend divorce, but it's true. I'm thankful for it, and I keep my island close. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. It was only after Ana Božičević's second book of poetry, Rise in the Fall, came out in 2013 that I discovered her work, because I've never been cool enough not to need a poet's second book to find their first book. I've been a fangirl ever since, but this introduction isn't about me, it's about Ana, as you will hear in the passage I'm about to read from that first book, Stars of the Night Commute. Ana was born in Zagreb, Croatia in 1977. As you will hear in the passage I'm about to read from that first book, Stars of the Night Commute, Ana was born in New York City in 1997. So listen. Once upon a time in a far-off land, there lived kindly King Louis Vuitton III. Sorry, I can't ever do French, my students know this. King Louis Vuitton III. For a summer job, he worked at the dairy barn on Broadway, and there, quite by accident, he fell in love. Twice a day, the dachshund would drive by inside an object and ask for a pretzel. The feeling he would get puzzled King Vuitton. It poked like a stone in the shoe. Finally, he asked him out and closed shop. What I mean to show is that sometimes the best way to understand the absurdity of our Western fairy tales is through the deviant form of an Eastern one, and this is something that Ana's poems very often do. I mean, I hear the Slavic flavor in her poems as they ride the New York subway. Also, God is everywhere and nowhere in these poems because, as we learn in The Fall of Lucci, revolution is everywhere, like God, its nemesis. But in her newest collection, God is depressed. God was let go, God is on unemployment, God sits around and sweats and binge watches. And maybe it's not revolution versus God, but war versus God, like in the poem War on a Lunch Break, where the speaker asks repeatedly, "What's war?" only to end with, "This, I feel the sunlight, but I keep asking why." Božičević's latest book, New Life, was misread by a staff writer at Publishers Weekly, who wrote that here in these new poems, Božičević is championing the confessional voice. This staff writer, I guess, was more familiar with Ricky Martin's La Vida Loca than Dante's La Vida Nuova, and didn't sense any of the tongue-in-cheek in the poems. In the Italian text, Dante declares his love for Beatrice. He is one of the first to do so in the vernacular, the Tuscan vernacular. He saves us all from Latin class. Like Dante, the speaker in Božičević's poems is also in love. Unrequited, love-lorn, glum, ugh, I hate my life, love. Yeah, she's a bit, God is dead, LOL. But the intertextuality, as some of my students are no doubt sick of me hearing me say, makes me think the broken heart isn't exactly the whole message. A lot of the point is how to write a poem in our vernacular. What is our vernacular? Or as we all wondered in poetry class recently, how do you speak an emoji? Anyhow, I'll let you all decide how right I am. Please help me welcome the poet Ana Božičević.
Wow, thank you so much. Well, the fangirling is like is very mutual. And also, I stand M. Zarowski. So yeah, I was born in 1977. The person who made that happen is sitting right here. This is Lambda, my mom. So I have her to thank for my old life. And new life, I was told today is exactly a year old. So happy birthday, new life, and I'm like kind of like doubly excited to be here with you and celebrate his birthday. So
I'm gonna try to put your mic up.
oh yeah, I'm kind of tall. Can you hear me? Yeah? Yeah.
Well, it just looks wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Voila.
Thank you. Ooh. That's the rug. It's too like
There's too much
plush.
hair on there. Yeah, exactly. You can take your shoes off if you want. It looks comfy. Feel free. Is that better? Is that all right?
Well, it's fine for me, but
Hold on.
it's falling. Yeah, I think if you lodge it. There we go.
I think that'll work.
Cool.
Sorry.
Okay. So I think I'm just gonna read to you from this book. New Life is after Dante. It's a book of love. It's also kind of like an immigrant book. Like, what does it mean to start again? That's one thing that America's supposed to be good for, or it used to be before the internet, is you could like just go to the next state and start anew. So the first poem in this book is Birthday. So let's start from the top. If the sky is such a cliche, why is it falling? If the tree is such a cliche, why is it dying? If soul is such a cliche, where is it hiding? If love is such a cliche, why isn't there enough to go around? For my part, I can't get enough of the sky. For my part, I can't wait for those leaves to come back. For my party, I'm inviting the clown love. For my birthday, I want a cake revealing the color of my soul. So this poem was kind of about, I think I read one of those poetry think pieces that was about how we shouldn't use certain words or certain cliches in our poems, like all those loves and trees and bones and souls were so overused that, you know, we should abandon them for new and exciting words. And I thought about how those are the things that whose like kind of precious existence seems to be more precarious than ever. And so what's behind this taboo, you know, on something that's so sorely needed? So I think that's kind of like what this poem is trying to, I don't know, I hate the word unpack, but there it is. And this is New Life, the eponymous poem. I think about it every day, to just leave and start life among some other people in a little town in the middle of America. I would tell them my name was whatever, think of some random name and say it. I'd work in a diner, put out the pie, coffee, and burgers. At the counter, the echo of great cities where everyone I ever loved, everyone who ever hurt me, anyone I ever hurted wouldn't reach. Lost among fields and mountains and highways, I wouldn't have anything much, unknown and safe, in witness protection from crimes of the heart. Outside the merciless glare of my story that blinds me, bumps into me, always spinning, so I see the back of her head and her face all at once. The one that tells me, you failed to live me, sang off tune like a shitty orchestra, and that's why no one loves you enough to stay. Shut up, Anna, I would say. The name's Linda. I don't know, is there a Linda here? Such an old-fashioned name, right? But sometimes I just want to be Linda. And abandon this narrative. But I don't think that it's possible, is it? And so this is a spring poem. It's wonderful to see all the blooms here. The blooms in New York got rudely shaken by a nor'easter yesterday. So this is for them. Who's that? Eloquent silence of everyone I ever loved. This cloudy Friday evening, spring but still cold, a smattering of new buds. Who's that? Swaddled in the uneasy atmosphere, in silence. No chatter or pleasant surprise, the lusty rush of a weekend with the beloved. Who's that? Sprouting now out of the cottony silence, with silky whips still hanging from their little chops. Who is it straining to pop out of the hardwood rings of time into the cool air? Like there's another cool world on the other side of this one, worth pushing through to, or maybe we're already there. Is that why we shake? So who's that? This was actually, my girlfriend says, you have to tell them, I said, who's that? And who's that is ethnic, she's Italian. We were walking down this industrial block in Brooklyn, and there were like little, like the tiniest green buds just starting to appear on the branches. And she pointed at them and she said, who's that? And I thought, like, how must it be to be this bud inside the branch and to have no idea what's on the other side? Like, all you've known is this wooden enclosure, and then suddenly you're like, bam, you pop up and there's all of this stuff, the whole world, right, the whole universe. And I thought kind of like changes like that, you don't know, you know, because you're still inside a branch, you don't know what it's going to be, you have no way to imagine. So I think, at least I hope that's what is in store for us if we believe that a new world is possible. This is Waterfall. Everything in my room is so detailed, you'd almost think it was real. And it's getting harder to play along with reality. I look long times out the window, pretend the room is a train car for traveling through time. It's kind of true. It's how the thing's designed or appears. And I have a secret weapon. I haven't spoken a word aloud to a living person all day. And I did this thing with time. It's hard to explain, like sleeping. It makes you feel like everything's super funny because you can't get hurt when you say waterfall, waterfalling, waterfall, waterfalling, waterfall, waterfalling, waterfall. There's a lot of depression in this book, and I think like poetry, like metrics, repetition is something that always really helped me. And I don't think that poetry is helpful to me in the sense of like a confessional, you know, I'm gonna say the woe, and then it's gonna disappear, and I don't think that really happens. But something about like the incantatory nature of poetry does that for me. So I think maybe writing it and reading it over and over, like almost singing it. Here's another one that's kind of like a depression poem. CFNR. Instead of getting upset that sometimes I wake up crying for no reason, I'm thinking maybe I'm crying for all the times I couldn't and now I can, so it's all right, and then it stops. All it needed was a little story. And this is Everyday People. I don't know what to say about this poem. I think I'll tell you later. You can tell me what you think, if it's true or not. Everyday people do remarkable things. They print new organs, then insert them under the heart, perform flawless gymnastics routines. They enter small metal pods and glide through the atmosphere to the airless space beyond. They compose symphonies. Everyday people do impossible things. Bury their child on a warm spring day, then make a fresh pot of coffee. Feel pity and even forgiveness for the person who wronged them, stupidly, cruelly. Walk to the top of a mountain and swim under ice. And still everyday people commit unspeakable crimes. They beat the bodies of elders who need their care, tear children from parents and put walls between them, wipe out whole cities, level species to nothing, put poison in rivers, and on the trees they killed, write beautiful poems. And this is happening now. It's like reading or thinking about like very private personal poetry in a time of international unrest always seems a bit of like a disconnect until I remember that poetry was my companion in the wartime that my family experienced. So poetry and war do go hand in hand. And this next poem is like the opposite vibe. So this is Island. For once in my life, I got a bit of money for writing a poem about New York. I thought of all the things I might do with my money. It would pay for a trip home to the as yet undiscovered blue island of the soul. I could throw a lavish party and invite all my friends, pay all my bills. But no, instead I got bed bugs. I looked into the sheath where the money had been. The empty place laughed. Where's your island, lol? I smiled. I'm smiling. The room's quiet and the bugs are all in heaven. For sure this day was one for the memoirs. Tomorrow I will paint the room blue and put the bed back in. It has to look good for when the love of my life steps in through its door and our whole world changes. But there's time. Tonight I sleep in the hammock and tell my jokes to the cat. I'm drinking beer. This poem sucks because I'm so happy. That's like another, I think, yeah, I guess when I think about it, there's a lot of sort of poking fun at cliches in this book. That's another cliche, like that no happy poems can be good poems, that the best poems are sad. Goethe said that that beauty stands out like a pearl on a dark velvet background or something like that. But I think good happy poems must be possible. And this is 5 Things at 40, which is based on like one of those magazine spreads. Like, you've probably seen this. 10 things you must buy in 2024. 3 things that women over 30 should never wear. So this is 5 Things at 40 that I wrote to myself when I turned 40. Just to remind myself, one of those lists. You are not crazy, it's the patriarchy. You're not a loser, it's the capitalism. You are not old, time's not really a thing. You're not alone, I'm here. You're made of stars, that's fucking cool. It's all true. So I actually do read this when I feel bad. So I recommend you write yourself your own 5 And let's see. I'll read you, this is a strange poem. I'll read you this poem. It's also a kind of a time travel poem. This is Zagreb 93. So this was like our wartime. And it was like the very beginning. And I never published this poem in a magazine because I always thought, who's going to publish a poem about getting a period during wartime? But here it is, Zagreb 93. Our downstairs neighbor watered the concrete backyard twice a day religiously to keep the dust from his basement apartment, until the bare slab grew moss and lichen, its own ecosystem, water of life. We laughed at him, but one morning I went out to the balcony, hung over the backyard to have smoke. Are you picturing all this? It was that time of month, and I became lightheaded. Bleeding through the white nightgown, I fell and passed out for a few moments, woke with blood pooling around my head and crotch. But anyway, it was neighbor who found me and cared, while I writhed in cramps on his green love seat, until the ambulance came. The ER was actually just a few blocks away, and when it was all done, I walked back a few streets over, still in my long, white, bloody nightgown and waist-long, dark goth hair, a fresh stitch by my eye making a cross over an old scar. Teen Madeline Usher, or so I fancied, walking through yards of dusty Zagreb roses. I wanted to control the stream of time, keep open the portal to the parallel world where I was cared for, something I somehow knew I deserved. I took on faith as the first planes flew overhead. So I guess like that moment of care, that brief moment of human-to-human care before everything went to hell, really stuck with me. And here he is again. What is it, 30 years later? And this is depression, straight up. No metaphor there, it's called depression. Is it programmatic or morally basic to say, there's a fucked up glow inside me my friends don't seem to understand? Don't they see her? Commercials show a somber dog or a cloud following you around. But she's a poet, an energy. She looks like me and you, like her daughter, a future I couldn't pull off giggling on a swing. She looks like my mentor, my mother, everyone I ever failed come to forgive me for what I wish they could help me with. What soothes her is to go around the dead, to bend my body, tell me I'll never love again, to leave me suddenly good and free, and come back like the bad results from the polls, like the first hard rain of the fall. And yeah, she could be kind of beautiful in the mirror, and I love to be in her body when I'm lucid dreaming. I know why she wants to break through to decide. She brings with her galactic winds. And sometimes I just want to ask her, what is it? What is so sad? And can the living help rather than be haunted? How can I help? Am I missing something? The most important thing? Some key to healing? Maybe her name? I think this was a kind of a, like, you know, in fairy tales, there's this whole thing, like if you call somebody, some creature by their true name, that you'll have control over them. Like, I guess Rumpelstiltskin is the most obvious one. But I thought, like, isn't that what diagnosis is, kind of? Like you give something, you finally call something by its name, and you like have a handle on it, you're given a set of magical tools to manage it. And I think when I was very depressed, I really did imagine depression as this sort of like other me, some kind of haunting or possession from somewhere else, from somewhere like far in the blackness of the universe, bringing this mortal chill. And I was like, what's wrong? You know, what can I do for you? Strange presence. This is psycho-magic. If wishes were horses, I would have no horse. I opened my pussy and a crow flew in. My heart is a dog sleeping on our love's grave. Yeah, I've been keeping my heart open for you like an elevator with my bare hands. And now it's closing as fast as the escape hatch in the sci-fi movie. at the speed of a casket lid. The dog got up, went to run along the sand. In the distance, a rainbow. Do I hear running water or horses running? I think this is kind of like now that I think about it, I think this is kind of like an O'Hara tribute. He's also like closing his heart. He's turning to verse. And there's a John Wiener's tribute here as well. Sometimes I'll pick things up. It's almost like they don't really get translated because they're in English, but they get almost like transliterated through my experience, and I write things. And later, when I'm trying to come up with the acknowledgments, I realize, hey, isn't that kind of like literally talking to this poem, this Wiener's poem, or this O'Hara poem, or whatever it is, that I haven't even realized when I was writing it? So I'll read you the Wiener's poem too. I stood outside. I stood outside love's door, afraid of what I'd find. A howling, rainy void, 1,000 clowns. The it from the phrase, it's raining. The rain sounds like a bunch of eyelashes running around. I tell tiny jokes to myself in front of love's door. I'm afraid I will find no one there, an empty cafe. Well, that actually sounds nice. I'd sit down and have a cappuccino and one cigarette and read those ancient newspapers back to back. I stand outside love's door praying for a soft landscape to walk into, worn marble staircase, some kind words, that's all. Once I held love as a thing, and then it came alive in my hands. It bit, flowed like water. I love imagining love as this thing that like I take thinking I can keep it, and then it like bites me. Or, I don't know, wags its tail, something. Read you some more love poems. I put bare feet in the fog, washed the sheets in ink, my heart in the fire for you. I don't think I was ever really a woman before whoever found who. Just an old high top, abandoned at midnight on the steps of your castle. When you like a thing of mine, it's like being touched by a ghost in a dream of whoever's haunting who. Since you came on my heart, I can't do anything. Wherever I go, I keep hearing this violin. That's how I know it's serious. I see your face in clouds and in stucco. Car alarms are bleeding your name. I stayed home and danced with a potato that looks like you. That's a true story. Naomi poem. These Naomi poems are also kind of a homage to the late Bill Mott, aka Saint-Giraud, who wrote a book of Naomi poems. I dreamed of us falling asleep in a garden holding hands, and our friends took a picture and said, they fell asleep like this. Phoneme. Phoneme is like the angel with a bunch of eyes, right? The biblically correct angel. I'm keeping quiet and it's no use. When I look down, I'm saying your name with all the lips. Your eyes look out my tits. Your mouth is my heart. How did you climb inside of me, the little stick inside the violin? A second soul calling out for its skin. I've always known there's a fire, a force, that midday beam that pins everything to the center of Earth, but like this? Now I have two faces, yours to mine, and a bunch of eyes everywhere that shine like the angel in the icon, whirlwind wheel on a wing, praising who's making her sing. I think there's a lot of song in this book too. It's kind of collaborating with the New York band that's really great, Weak Signal, who actually played the 40 Watt last weekend, annoyingly, not while I was here. But so there's kind of a lot of music in this book too, because I think I started, listening to songs, to their songs and analyzing them as songs, I started thinking in terms of songs again too, not just poems. My body is haunting my soul. The clear thread of light across that tree is talking to me, and my soul, overgrown and metastasized, from too little pruning or control, rises to the front of my skin, like a swimmer to the rippling surface, smells the tree, sinks to it. Ever since I was little, I let my soul have free reign inside me. Whoever tries to order it eventually goes away. Do you know what it's like? To have a wild garden inside you, unassailably, to watch it grow whole spires of thorn to the sun and meadows far as the eye can see. I watched my soul resurrect grandfather, show me the stars. Even you fell in love with her, it couldn't have been me. And how I wish her mission ended there. How I wish she'd stop before she wears me out. An old Eastern European suit, left in a dusty department store window, faded from all the years of talking to the sun. Do you have any idea the size of my soul, baby? Like last time being just baby, straight up theft from Diann de Prima. My girlfriend makes fun of me sometimes. She's like, do you have any idea the size of my soul? I'm like, shut up. So unfortunately, she like memorized a lot of this book and will tell it back to me in poetry voice. And this is person. I'll read you a few more. Person. I want to be cool more than I want you to like me. A disco ball wearing a crown of thorns. Seaweed waving off the side of the underwater subway. We started out as wood and morphed into silver in time. It's 6 a.m. and I'm ready to go out and tell everyone else I'm a person and tell everyone I count as much as a penny. I wish I could tell you I was more plausible than the night, but you got stuck in the mirror labyrinth and came out with a totally new name. It's night mornings like this, I wish I could travel in time just to slap my own ass when I was born. I sometimes wish you could just like, go on then, you poor thing. Like you have no idea. You have no idea what's gonna happen. And I'm gonna read a poem that I never read, but it's weirdly one of my favorites in this book, called Long Lines. Looked around your life and found no place to sit, so I've just been standing this whole time. And every time I look in like that, I see a different color room full of beautiful strangers who care less. Ever since those childhood cues for teepee and brown bread, I leave when I see long lines. With what relief I breathe the smog, tuck into an empty alley, holding suddenly giant church steps. I sit here and smoke. Do you know what, that like relief of leaving a really crowded place and going somewhere just sitting by yourself? It's one of those beautiful things that can happen to a human being. And I'll read you two more. How about that? Let's do God is Depressed. That's the one that you cited, Maggie. You almost read all of it, but let's finish it. How about that? I'm a completist. God is depressed. God was let go. God is on unemployment. God sits around and sweats and binge watches. Are you still watching? I'm always watching, from the beginning of time. And I still see you, my child. I'm just too depressed to stop the world I made. Don't you think that's the most likely scenario? I think so. Because if I made this chaos, I'd be like, whatever. I'll keep watching, but...
You're making your mother suffer.
Oh, Mom! Mommy, no. And let's end with a love poem, just because it's spring, and because love will win. Endless Heart. My heart is a vinyl stuck on repeat. I pulled my heart up off the floor, heavy meat curtain, and went off to bed to touch along to a poem. This is sad. The yellow bird dreams land and depart. You've gone off and made many movies, but I'm still in this little old town stuck on you. At night when you sleep inside your swan, do you think of me ever? You make me want to buy a computer and write really long lines. My heart is a pink knife I keep by my bed, my meow. My heart's grown a beard wrapped around its bone throne in the mountain. Somewhere by a sea you pass through fogs. The most intense colors bloom inside the funniest jokes on repeat. I flew here to see you. We talk against seagulls like bright commas on night mode. And I don't even care how I end a poem. Thank you so much.